strife and destroy life. Walk cautiously, children, be alert, because you have an enemy that's roaming the earth. I know you're young and restless, but you don't have to be careless. You see, sober thinking leads on to righteousness, to happiness, spiritual bliss. That's why I tell you this: watch out, my children. Watch out, my children. It have a fella called Lucifer with a bag of white powder, and he don't want to powder your face, but to bring shame and disgrace to the human race. Now we sing it again. Watch out, my children. Watch out, my children. It have a fella called Lucifer with a bag of white powder, and he don't want to powder your face, but to bring shame and disgrace to the human race. I give you my counsel because I want to see all you young people live righteously. What you feed your mind with forms your characteristics and shape the path that you must walk tomorrow. Darkness or glow, joy or sorrow, that's why I'm concerned. So watch out, my children. Watch out, my children. Yeah, yeah. It have a fella called Lucifer with a bag of white powder, and he don't want to powder your face, but to bring shame and disgrace to the human race. To all my sons and daughters in Germany, pass auf, meine Kinder. Pass auf, meine Kinder. Da ist jemand, der heißt Lucifer, hat eine Jude mit weißem Puder. Aber will dein Gesicht nicht pudern, denn bringt den Menschen nur Schlechtes.
Yes, indeed, of course, a pleasant good night to all and sundry, East, West, and South Central in Trinidad, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are, streaming on the World Wide Web. A pleasant good day to you. Yes, I thought I would start with this somber mood, because today, not only in terms of the, what I consider to be the nuclear or the nook and cranny conversation in Trinidad and Tobago is about our young people and the issue and problem of crime and criminality, and in circumstances where there is an existential or existing or contemporary state of emergency. That is probably the massive contradiction, where you have a state of emergency ostensibly to address the question of crime, but yet still it appears, whether perceptively or in practice, or when you look and you peruse the daily newspapers or you look at the social media blogs and information dissemination, the specter and the horrendous nature of crime continue to be the central, or what I consider to be the centripetal issue that we must confront and address. If we don't, the society, the civilization called Trinidad and Tobago certainly is and will be in jeopardy in the foreseeable future. Yes, indeed. So it is about our young people and the whole question. In fact, today, on the ground report, that was the central issue. That was the apex issue. That was the irrefutable, indispensable, whether you take it from an emotional perspective, and I learned a new word today, so I'll share it with you, that has to do with persons who have no emotions. I'll deal with it a little later. Because you see, under the program that we have, the ground report, on 91.1 Talk City, there is a segment called the Word Challenge of the Day, which of course I am the host. And very interesting. And I would invite, of course, whether you see on Thursday or you are in the secondary system or the tertiary system, very important. You can't lose, but it will add, of course, to your vocabulary. Or if you know the word or words already, you would reinforce your vocabulary, because not every day we will use the same words. But there are some, of course, that we use on a regular basis, almost indispensably, such as is and are, and of course, things that is considered to be run-of-the-mill, that you have to use to join or make up sentences to describe our world, to give verbal consciousness to what is around us. But before I go there, let me, of course, invite another piece from the late great. I'm talking here about, of course, Lord Shorty Eye. And he did said, and in song, a profound statement that he would have made, and that is this. That is this, yes.
It's fine to a bed in the hospital, yeah. And we can't hear a word from Health Minister Kamal. Whoa. Black dirty water we had to drink. Water say clean, but it smelling stink. And my friend, the worry, money ain't no problem. My friend, the shouting, money ain't no problem.
Yes, indeed, but of course, from the essence of the lyrics, you would know that money is a problem. So it is a contradiction. But I thought I would introduce several contradictions tonight. I started, of course, by saying that we have an SOE, ostensibly, of course, to address the question of crime, but there seems to be no relenting, no letting up of that scourge. I also mentioned the whole question of young people, and before I go there, let me say that Joshua did a trial today. I think that they would have recorded it. I don't think I will play tonight, but we will start in earnest tomorrow. He has put together some friends. They did some work on the school board or the classroom board that we have established. There's some tweaking that we have to do. But we will get there because as one person who gave the word challenge, one of the word challenge today on the ground report said, the word was tenacious. Well, we have to be tenacious. We have to stick to it. We have to be focused. And we have to know that the goals that we set ourselves, nothing could deviate, nothing could transgress that focal point and that objective, because that is part and parcel of the human what I consider to be tenaciousness to achieve. Human tenaciousness to achieve. There are those who, of course, have very little to contribute, but will come on this program and learn as much as they can, and at the same time, of course, on the basis of mischief for reasons not just best known to them, but known to us as well, that if coming out of the environment called East Port of Spain, Laventil, Beetham, and you have a program like this, and you have a dedicated focus, and they cannot see the good of it, you know where they are. But I like to say variety is the spice of life. And therefore, and I also would want to admonish that there are certain cliches or quotes that you should also inculcate and remember. There is none as blind as he or she who refuses to see. Let me repeat. There is none as blind as he or she who refuses to see, because you cannot tell me that whether it be Joshua, whether it be yours truly, or whether it be the team of individuals that we have gathered to brainstorm in order to address the almost, I say almost for some, and in fact so for others, the intractable problem of crime and criminality. One, our young people gravitating to a life of violence and adopting or adjusting or taking on board as part of their character the whole question of bellicose and aggressive language and postures that could only harm good human-to-human relations. And then we sit idly by as adults who are clearly closer to our way out, because none of us are here to turn stone. None of us can outlive by too far the 70 as dictated in, of course, religious doctrines. And so, if it is that we are committed to leaving a better place called Trinidad and Tobago for our existing young people and those that are to come after them, because they too will pass the same road biologically as I and you, if you are older than, let's say, 19 years of age, let me put it that way, and therefore an adult. So I'm making the distinction between children or young people, as they would call it, and that of what we consider legally to be an adult, someone that is 18 years and over. So we have a fundamental base from which to launch our efforts to try to address the burgeoning socio-economic, psycho-cultural, and indeed, the political and the physical realities that will have to be harnessed in a positive way to address these problems. Yes, I agree it is enormous. I agree it will take time. But as Confucius would say, that very famous Chinese philosopher and humanitarian, the longest distance to travel begins with a single step. And if the corridor transformation represents a single step, then indeed we are on our way to resolving and to ameliorating and to addressing and to redressing our issues. Let me say tonight, as part of the house cleaning, we have not totally resolved the question of our contact, but I am going to communicate with you because it is a necessity. So we'll communicate by my phone. I trust that we have enough juice, enough battery life to expand the entire program tonight, because just about an hour and a half we're going to take. But I want to tell you that the question of our young people gravitating, particularly in East Port of Spain, Laventille, Beetham, along the East-West Corridor from Carenage, Diego Martin, and right up to Tonopuna, and of course beyond Sangre Grande, etc. No place is safe. Safe in the context of not experiencing crime and criminality. And I wanted to make the bold statement that every single one of us in Trinidad and Tobago, 1.5 million of us, so that will include, of course, those who are innocent and therefore before the age of 18, would have experienced some kind of violence, some kind of experience, not as perpetrators necessarily, but of knowledge, of knowing, of somebody close, somebody distant, but nonetheless, you are aware through social media, through traditional media, and through the various mechanisms and the information dissemination that will come from institutions that are responsible for addressing these very problems, but they have to share the information because we live in a democracy, and information, of course, is what is value. Information is gold, and information is transformatory. Information is the mechanism through which or by which we can live and survive in whatever environment that we eventually couch or evolve into in Trinidad and Tobago. That is where we are. So the line is open at 337-6940. 337-6940, that's the number to call. I'm going to use the cell phone tonight because we tested the system and we were still getting this static. So I am hearing you, but you are not hearing me, and therefore we have this difficulty. But of course, as the old people say, that when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. And what do I mean by that? Is to bring out the inventiveness, the creativity, the fact that the job has to be done. And if it means resorting to technology that we thought at one time we would have gone past, or we would not have considered it to be important to save the day in contemporary, technologically advanced Trinidad and Tobago. Well, I want to say that when Scotland talked about coal pot, and when he talked about bicycle, and when he talked about roasting breadfruit, and then I would say that that is an exaggeration. That is taking it too far. And it has no practical and no real, what I consider to be operational or gravitation by anyone to go that far back. You're talking about Neanderthals. You're talking about caveman scenario. Of course, the face he has etches that kind of thinking, but therefore we must be able to say it to people like that, particularly where they have been responsible for advancing Trinidad and Tobago, and to go skip over the intermediary and go way back to caveman type assertions, I think, of course, is an indication of the level of mindset, of these people, because clearly he will never ride a bike to go to work. He will never go to a coal pot to roast a breadfruit. He's a lawyer. And what I'm saying in effect that he's a blasted liar. He will never do that. And if you believe that I'm defaming him by calling him a liar, then take me to court. Take me to court. Stuart Young. Not Stuart Young, sorry. Scotland. To give the indication that you are a pauper, that you are a man begging alms. I think it is despicable. It is reckless. It is self-serving. And it does not augur or project any kind of comfort, especially to the ordinary Joe and the young people in particular who knows and who can arrogate unto themselves that your attempt is to mamagai and to insult them by talking about bicycle, coal pot, and breadfruit. Let's not waste time. Because we know, all of us know that that is an impossibility. And if you want to use an example to show that people must engage in austerity measures, that level of phantasmagorical exaggeration is really not just ridiculous, but does not augur well for persons that have the responsibility to guide and nurture and to bring Trinidad and Tobago to a point where all of us know the capacity exists. But at the same time, for these people to believe that we are total fools. Yeah. So as I said, the line is open. 337-6940. I await, of course, as I said, I will take the calls on my cell phone. You will notice, of course, we have begun the process of transforming. The background is different. Joshua had, as I said, a trial run today. And therefore, we are in a position where we can continue. Remember, this thing is being done courtesy, love for community. Not because of somebody sponsoring. So therefore, when we talk in finance, and obviously, internet has to be paid for. The various, what I consider be equipment in studio has to be costed and paid for. Whether it be cameras, not one, we have several cameras, 1, 2, 3, about 4 or 5 cameras here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 computers and a laptop. We have the desktops, and then we have, of course, the laptop. Yeah, all of that has to be done. And notwithstanding, of course, some of the graphics, the music has to be acquired. And then, of course, to be a little comfortable in the seat that we are in, we have just invested, of course, in at least one air-conditioned system, upgrading from the 5 or 6 fans that we'll have operating on a daily basis and consuming, of course, electricity in itself you have to pay for. And then, of course, you have things like, which we take for granted, but we have to have, of course, things like water. We have to have cold water. So we have to have refrigeration capacity. We have to get something for people to eat or snack upon. And therefore, that too presents a cost. So I don't want people to believe, as some would like us to believe, that this is coming to you easily. because it requires cost. Of course, we're not talking yet about the seating accommodation, the chair that I sit on. Let me just give you an idea. Yes. Yeah. The other chairs that we will have for guests. The classroom settings you will see with desks and chairs and chalkboard or whiteboard, as the case may be. I'm giving you a conceptual idea as to the cost involved in bringing a program to you every night. And those who glibly see it as nothing, you must now appreciate what an effort. I ain't talking yet about content, because content means what I'm delivering to you now. As for conversation purposes and what you will bring to the discussion as well, requires research. You don't want it to be always in a errata or a scenario where you are making mistakes on a regular basis. I say mistakes because I don't think anybody who have invested in a program like this to share with the world will do that deliberately. So in order to narrow the gap between the certainty and the veracity of the information that is being projected, and the error that may from time to time, as human beings, we may experience, to reduce that gap means that you have to expend time. What does that mean in essence? It means that you will have now, whether it's Joshua, whether it's yours truly, whether it's the other members of the, what I consider to be the team, researching any item for delivery to you as part of the programming mechanism that we would establish or have established. It means that valuable family time is taken away. It means a lot of time is being expended on rifling through and looking through and researching. Yes, all of that happens. So those who may come and give the impression that this is a simple exercise, I thought I should disabuse that. But let's go to the line. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. I don't want to put you on the system itself because we're having a communication problem there, so I'll take you right here. Pleasant good night. Welcome.
Good night. This is Dico Martin, and welcome back, Lennox.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes.
You know, you function as a bedtime story before we go to nap.
I hear you, my friend.
All right. I want to talk about Jack, Shelley, and Duke.
Okay.
All right. Shelley, you know, she is the spouse of a fella they call Brian.
Yes, a former, I think, a news presenter. Yeah.
Right,
yes.
right.
Good. So, Shelley Das, in fact. Yes.
I want to ask loudly, and I sure nobody thinking like me. You know, I just think all kind of thing.
Yes, I know that you remind me of this fellow Nobody, who of course is constantly conjuring and manufacturing, of course, conspiracies.
I am somebody. Nobody. Listen to this.
Yeah. Well. I hear you. Go ahead. Yes.
The taxpayers pay for Brian Manning bridal package.
Okay.
You don't understand.
That's a very good question. Because having regard to the pattern of behavior and the profligacy and the abuse of public funds, Balize House, the
Looking at
retreats
it,
of the last government that are PNM exercises, but they converted or they perverted in order to utilize public funds. It is a fair question. Go ahead.
all right, and they're paying in US dollars, and we scrunting to get a little $200 to go abroad, but she getting working from home, virtually probably, for a thing. No, nothing about energy, anything. No. I see they try to spruce up her qualification. Stanford and Harvard. They say she has some certificate in that, so that is another degree program. I want to know if she got that while she was working for the US dollars to pay for some online courses. That's all I'm saying. I'm not castigating and say she didn't have it before, but Stanford and Harvard, they have a lot of online certificate courses. All right, let me go after Jack.
Go ahead.
I see Jack say he has some an accounting degree from St. George's University in Grenada.
Mm-hmm.
Is that another scholarship by you, Williams? Why couldn't he get his accreditation here in Trinidad and Tobago? Use the natural thing and go to UE, go to UTT or something like that. Who you want to go St. George's for? You wasn't that bright to get it in Trinidad, or is another ploy to hoodwink taxpayers and the funding of scholarships?
You said Jack. Not the Jack. Not Jack Warner, because I mean he has a doctorate.
Jack,
Yeah. Okay.
Jack, no,
Okay.
no, don't confuse. This is the Jack who was the PNM member in Tobago.
Right. Oh, that Jack. Right. Okay. Right. I just want to make sure that we are on the same page. Go ahead. Yes.
And I didn't use the A word after the Jack, right? So
I hear you.
right? He lost the election in Tobago. I think when they get 14-1, they wipe them out.
Yes.
They throw him out of the DJ, and the PNM fine arresting ground for him. $17,000. He went to St. George's to get a accounting degree. Why couldn't do it here? He could have go and get accounting degree in SBCS, right?
Yeah. And he was the man that the previous administration in Tobago, under the PNM, of course, designated for the finance, I believe the finance secretary at one time. Not so good. I just want to make sure. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, he was the finance man, boy.
Yeah.
Hey, they played the pilfer.
Yeah.
Our taxpayers' money, and they're trying to be so pious.
Yeah, and self-righteous.
Right.
Yes.
I mean to say, and don't talk about the vulgar KCR.
Oh yes, I mean that is a reincarnation of himself. The first time I see, in Hinduism they talk about reincarnation, but usually you come back a more refined form of yourself from the previous. Not necessarily, but I agree. Having regard to what transpired.
You could ascend, or you could descend. Patrick Manning call him a raging bull.
Yes. If
we going down reincarnation, he's a raging Jack donkey.
I hear you.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they say he's so vulgar, and you have Balmati, and you have all of them condoning that sort of behavior.
Yes, I mean that was extremely unfortunate. But I think, and I want to say, and this is coming from me, that has also been condoned by the political leader of the PNM at this stage, who happens to be a woman, Penelope Beckles. I say so without fear of contradiction, because her silence is so conspicuous, is so deafening, that you could only draw that conclusion. Go ahead.
Because Small Pin had the same vulgarity in Parliament already.
Yes, when he talked about in the toilets.
Right.
Yeah, the toilet scenario. Yes. Making Zami.
And I don't know why we continue to accept those vulgar male people. I mean, they say
But
They don't have no
but I wanna
they don't have
pause
bill
here.
insurance.
I want to pause and ask you a question consistent with, of course, what we are laying out here. Do you really believe that the population, by and large, where it is critical, and critical here, let me just define what critical means here. Critical means sufficient to have them back in government. Do you think that the population is that naive, is that vulnerable, is that susceptible, and accept that as good potential for good governance, or individuals that really have lost their way morally, ethically, and so on, and to continue in opposition like that and continue to spew this kind of unacceptable venom? Do you think that a sufficient critical mass of the population is so stupefied to put them back in office? I want to hear your view. You know, you're a conspiracy man.
Okay, people have to understand
Uh-huh.
the 35% of people who have supported the PNM have supported the PNM for 70 years.
Okay.
They know the PNM has boxed them in
All right.
to a psychology
Okay.
difficult to move from. They
Okay.
know nothing other than the PNM. They eat the PNM in the morning, they drink them in the night, and they go to bed with the PNM. Let me reflect on a call, on a ground report about 4 months ago.
Okay.
When a very, very senior lady called in and said she got the dream that the Lord came down and anointed Eric Williams.
I hear you, I hear you. Well, I've heard stories like that. You put a crapo with a balize tie, and of course you will go there, and if a particular place is a donkey, some places are to the tail, and so on, all that. Go ahead.
Eric said that
Yes.
he knows that he has kept them in bondage. He has changed up the psychologically. No education for them, no laptop. Continually keep them in bondage, giving them handouts. Don't teach them how to make it instead of just giving it to them. That is where they can't think outside the ideology of the PNM. It is plain and simple.
Yeah, so
And
I'm
they don't
asking
want
you the
to-
very specific question again. Do you think that all of what you have said is sufficient to get them in office, having regard to all what has transpired, having regard to the deconditioning exercises that would have been engaged? Even I would have been part of that, let's say, a movement to make certain that the PNM is exposed, and that kind of what I consider to be backward or obsolete political posture is
Okay.
totally dismissed from the politics, and therefore persons like that ought not to be in government at all. I don't want to influence your decision in
Okay.
terms of your
Let me
analysis,
put it
but
this
go ahead.
way. Yes, we can keep them out of office.
Okay.
But the challenge for the UNC is great. They cannot afford to make mistakes. And I believe
okay.
in
Right.
KPB, she has learned from her mistake.
Okay.
For me, she has been an academic based on excellence. So she know what and how to achieve excellence.
Okay.
Yes, she has some ministers that young into it, but the way I've seen how she form a cabinet,
Okay.
there is a purpose behind it. I listened to another show on another program on 91 point.
Okay.
And one of the hosts made it very, very clear. The PNM supporters vote for nothing. You just beat them into submission, you give them all these things. So it's very difficult to get them to vote for something. If they're voting for 77 years of the PNM for nothing, because all the constituency have gotten nothing, they have moved nowhere, they are still in an undeveloped thing, and they consider that to be good because they believe that if they have a black man of their earth, they're going to go.
All right.
As they say, some people say they prefer to eat salt than to make friends with a neighbor.
I hear you, my friend. I hear you.
All right? Okay. I got it.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks very much. Of course, a person like myself, having regarded the question that was posed, would have to conclude that there is much more work to be done to convince even those who may be settled in terms of their die-hard PNMism. we have more work to be done. And you will appreciate, of course, my earlier statement that initiatives such as the corridor transformation is so critical to that process. Because, I mean, I take not likely the statements on a daily basis sometimes of the Diego Martin caller, the individual we just had conversation with. And I want you to call in as well. I mean, many of you may not be familiar as yet. I saw that there were quite a lot of persons on last night, with respect, of course, to the program last night. My people, of course, are monitoring. We have a sort of bifocal or bifurcated system, where, of course, we have others focusing, whilst I focus on delivering the material and not be distracted. So I'm not going to, for example, comment on somebody making a comment, whether it is negative, positive, or in between. Maybe sometime in the future I will have people, of course, once the conditions are right, because I love discourse, I love dialogue, I love reasoning, I love rationalization. That is why I always say that I am not the repository of all information. But however, with you making your contribution, others making theirs, I making mine, then we have a synergy. We have a kind of symbiotic intellectual or cognitive or information dissemination, sharing arrangement or ecosystem that will make all of us richer for the information that we would have shared with each other, inclusive of those who we can identify as pure mischief makers. Pure mischief makers. And I want to say at this juncture, apart from, of course, introducing the new word that I learned today, I want to say at this juncture, there are so many people that are coming forward and offering, of course, their assistance in one way or another, whether it be advice, positive advice, of course. Asking advice could also be in the realm of avoiding pitfalls, looking at perceived or real enemies, having their tentacles out there, by, of course, monitoring persons who would say something good here, but say something to the opposite elsewhere. All of that. We have to do it. It is not a Gestapo or flying squad arrangement, no. But it is about making certain that the information is so distilled that even those who are attempting to sully or to decry or to undermine the good work and the purpose for doing all of this on a nightly basis is minimized and or neutralized. Minimized and or neutralized. It's very important, because there are going to be those who, for agendas that are not as genuine as projected, and for reasons that are so narrow and self-serving that they don't mind sacrificing the entire neighborhood, in which they reside, the village that comprise the area they're residing, and of course, the crucible called Trinidad and Tobago on a national scale. We have to be discerning. We have to be our brother's keepers. And we have to be vehemently, if that's the proper adjective to describe the focus, vehemently focused. We must be. Trinidad and Tobago deserves nothing less and everything equal or more. So that is important. The word for today, of course, I learned today. What I would normally do on the ground report, having been the host for that feature called the word challenge. The challenge part is that 2 or 3 persons call in and they give me a word which I will attempt to give the meaning of the cuff, with no aid, no dictionary reference or nothing like that. And of course, if I cannot, as was the case today, I would say I never came across, I don't know that word, I didn't come across it. Sometimes, of course, you come across a word, but the pronunciation may be, you may interpret the pronunciation different from another person, and they may sound a bit, what I consider to be enigmatic or puzzling or not as audible, so that you can, of course, make a good assessment and therefore give a good response. But in this case, it was all of the above, because and at the same time, I never heard the word before. That word would have been Alexithymia. 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 And it means, of course, individuals. It refers to individuals. Some say it's a psychological thing. Some say it's not. Some say it may be similar to autism. But you have people who are insensitive to emotions, so that you may have a friend and you confide in him or her and say, listen, boy, I went and played a mark and I lost some money, and part of that money was supposed to maybe buy lunch or provide food for the household. So you are trying to get some sympathy, if not empathy, from that friend, and then the friend turned around and say, it's good for you. You had no right to do that. And in fact, I wish you go back and lose again. I'm just using that as an example of the terminology that is nestled in the word alexithymia. 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 So I think I've shared that with you as well, so that you have another. And immediately, of course, I would want to apply it practically, so that I could at least regurgitate or recall it where I believe it is applicable. So I always look for some circumstance to apply it. And of course, I think the major and the most poignant, the most visible exemplification or example of that is Dr. Rowley. He shows no emotions. We saw it, of course, in COVID. We saw it in his foreign policy posture vis-a-vis Venezuela versus CARICOM versus Trinidad and Tobago's interests. We have seen it. So apart from calling people off the cuff, insensitive, disattached to how people's feeling would be, he would call, of course, a sitting prime minister a jamet. Recent vintage. He has no qualms and had no qualms in concocting or inventing emails that he, pieces of paper that he called emails, to displace a certain government. He had no qualms. So to me, quite apart from the other issues that he would lie, off the cuff, his mendaciousness knows no boundary. His proclivity or propensity to lie has no boundary. He would say one thing today and tomorrow a different thing. Look at the Vincent Nelson matter. Look at the Delcy Rodriguez matter. Look at the whole question of why it is that he withdrew the court matter as far as Petrotrin is concerned, and the head of that board that was instituted by the PNM, whether it was under Manning or not. I talk about Malcolm Jones. Look at it. So we have eventually, thank God for the introduction under the ground report and the hosting of the word challenge of the day, I was able to find a word to appropriately describe Dr. Rowley and his total injured, hard-hearted, emotionless, dogmatic, reprehensible, despicable, and wholly and solely unfit to have been a prime minister. And today we have the inauspicious reality to call him a former prime minister. Yeah. So the term Alexei Themia, appropriate for him. Devoid, the absence of emotions. It's always about self. Of course, we know narcissism and all of that is part and parcel. Egotistic propensity is part and parcel of it. We know that he's a megalomaniac. We know that he is a hubris of an extreme proportion. But certainly, we have not been able to get one word to crystallize. And I think today we were able to do so. And I want you as well on around 8:15 every morning. Ground report is from 6 to 9. I'm also appealing, of course, to the business community as well. Not only would we want some assistance here on the corridor transformation, but I think that the efforts that we are making on the ground report on 91.1, and we have a particular mission to make the station as a whole by 91.1 Talk City contribution to not necessarily wean off the government in terms of the subsidies, or I shouldn't say subsidies, but the transfers that would be sent to the TTT, because the overall, should I say, management and ownership of that network is called TTT Limited, of which our very own colleague Michael Kerr is the chairman, or has been appointed the chairman. But apart from the fact of wanting to make him successful, but I think we have a more sustainable responsibility to have that state enterprise, that state agency, that state media be less dependent, at least in the immediate to medium term, on the resources of the treasury of the country, because we have a point to prove. And what is that point? That state enterprises can can become close to, if not self-sufficient. But more significantly, as we drill down, is that the members of the team, whether it be Andy, whether it be Mikey, whether it be myself, we have criticized, we have castigated, we have preferred the solutions to the increasing and the monolithic demands on the state and the state coffers by state enterprises, and therefore it will be remiss of us if we are part and parcel of a state entity, which in fact we are on, in this case, 91.1 Talk City, every morning, Monday to Friday, just as we would do on social media prior, to at least make the attempt. So I'm saying all of that to ask the business community, large businesses, because today when we spoke about the whole question of looking for solutions to our crime, I concluded by 9 o'clock or close to 9 o'clock that we have not yet, and therefore that discussion has not yet been completed. It is open-ended, I consider to be conclusion, where the business community, and I'm not talking here about micro and small and of course developing and what I consider to be those businesses that are now progressing towards becoming large businesses. I'm talking about those established large ones. I'm not going to call any name, but are doing well. You have a duty, of course, to, as I said in my closing remarks, adopt a community. Take an area of social concern, but contributing to the amelioration and the reduction, if not the elimination, of young people gravitating to a life of crime. And if you would want me to prefer some ideas, well, education, sports, social intervention in terms of lectures on attitudinal changes, and indeed invite some of the participants or the potential beneficiary or target groups to your own facility, your own plant, so that they could understand how management and how interpersonal relationship and how the division of labor, possibly if it is a factory environment, how it operates. so that they do not continue to wallow in their own perception that what they experience in their respective communities is what really exists out there in the ambitious and developmental world. That's the point I am drawing. I wasn't able to, of course, elaborate this morning, but certainly I can do so on this program. Yes, indeed. And then, of course, I also made reference to the financial institutions in this country, particularly the banks and so on, that are making millions of profits after tax. Adopt a community. If every single, we have enough, I'm sure, businesses, both in terms of the financial sector, in terms of the private sector, and I like to, of course, treat the energy sector as a standalone, because it cannot help but make money, particularly, of course, in present circumstance. Cannot help. And therefore, your social responsibility, your corporate citizen perspective should be driven into an area where Trinidad and Tobago's success or failure is dependent on how the young people, particularly those who are either engaged or have the potential to engage in criminal behavior, are controlled or divest that attitude, that propensity brought on by a variety of circumstance. And I want to say, as I have said before, in an area where they are so entrapped, they are so emasculated, they are so enclosed, they are so engulfed or entombed, if you want to call it that, that they know nothing different because they're born in that, they grew up in it, and they believe that the cycle must be ended by dying in it. And I have always mentioned in the context of Laventil, Beetham, Silats, Movant, Belmont, of course, East Port of Spain, Chumacac, Africa, Malik, parts of Barataria. I've always said that we must understand and unleash the positive human spirit, the positive ability for transformation quickly. And I always reference as well to the philosophy called existentialism, that recognizes that the human being is so strong and versatile, is so adaptive, that in spite of the circumstance in the areas that I would have mentioned, characterized by the law enforcement as crime hotspots and sociologically depressed, that as individuals we can rise to the occasion. And the infectious nature of saying that I will not be a victim of the circumstances in which I was born and nurtured, that I can emerge. But there are certain qualities that are required. the first thing is acceptance, and that's a mental process. The next thing, of course, is to have a plan. And the next thing, of course, is to have a process for the execution of that plan. And of course, there are other abstract qualities such as the tenaciousness and the monofocal and the insistent that I can make it. I referred earlier to how people from sometimes unknown, out of the blues, but they are observing. Just as how I have observed and decided to create the corridor transformation, there are people observing and know that this cannot be right and that there is better. And of course, there's reference to the Bible. They're talking about nothing good could come out of Nazareth, and the Savior of mankind did. And in that vein, I'm referring, of course, to a bishop that I met recently. And in conversation, subsequently, he has become a mainstay, or should I say, conversation engagement point, because I believe that if I am to be convinced of another argument about a particular topic, that I must be fully apprised by the opposing view so that I can make adjustments and adapt, of course, to the reality and the mix and the hybrid, if you want to call it that, of information brought on by the intervention of the stranger. But I want to tell the bishop, he knows himself tonight, that yes, I have looked at Psalm 27. And yes, I'm in the process of committing to memory. And yes, I have been reciting on a daily basis. Yes, indeed. Yes. And I want to tell you, it is working because I am more focused, able to, of course, treat with this program tonight, for example, in spite of the soothsayers and what they may have said. People, of course, it is now how much? 20 past 9. All right, so we are going to 9:30. So we have 10 more minutes. Yes, indeed. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Who could be against me? Who could be against me? Yes, Psalm 27. I commit that. I share because I believe in sharing. The Lord is my light, and you take a look at it for yourself. Tomorrow night, of course, we will be a little more elaborate in terms of the Psalm 27. There are others, of course, but I took a look at it at the request of the bishop, and I'm satisfied that it is extremely appropriate because it talks about the enemy, potential, real, and there is this ever lingering aspect of the spiritual, that which you cannot see. But it's there, it's not the physical. And spirit to me also mean people who wish in your bad, who wishing that you will never succeed. That's a spirit in itself, because you can't see it either. It is abstract in somebody's mind. And what I have observed, however, in recent times, that there are many advisors telling you to do this, do that, this way, and so on. But nobody had to tell me that the only way you can properly assess an advisor is if, based on the issue that is being focused upon, that individual is a success therein. So if you are a successful businessman, certainly you can talk to me. But if your circumstance is one that is worse than mine, but you are advising me, I don't take that on board as what I consider to be the appropriate, or I wouldn't say perfect, but certainly the type of individual that engenders absolute success by way of their projection onto others via their ideas and or advice. You too must be able to be discerning that is how I do it. So, quite a lot of young people coming here up to today, for example. They want advice as to how to look for a job. They are pursuing a particular job, but they want to be assisted with a resume. They want a recommendation. And in many instances, they would have gone through the secondary system without a certificate. What I will do right here in the facility here in the Empowerment Center, because many of them I know would be very familiar with the smartphone and very familiar with the computer and programs that any administrative, should I say, department of any business would want, and that is to be able to type a letter. In other words, be familiar, be computer literate. Many of them, but they don't have a certificate. So what does the locksmith do in such circumstance? Well, the MLIO Trade School is a registered with the Ministry of Education private educational institution, of which I'm extremely proud. And so what we would do is give a test to the young man, young woman that has to bolster the qualifications that they would have in order to convince their potential employer to give them the job. And all of us know that if you go there with your bare hands, having gone through secondary system, and you said, of course, that you are computer literate, that is insufficient. By itself, you cannot just tell me or write it on your that you are computer literate, unless, of course, the potential employer is so flexible and so inclined, because they probably are impressed with the way that the interview was conducted, to just give you a impromptu test as to whether what you are saying on your resume that you are computer literate really exists. But that is far-fetched. That is hardly likely. Why? Because if the job is advertised, then it means there are others that are going to be competing with you for that job, and therefore they too will be, of course, exposed to the same interview, but they may walk with their certificate. It means, therefore, by virtue of elimination, because you do not have a certificate to certify that you are computer literate, even though you may be better than the person who has a certificate, that is irrelevant. You lost the opportunity. The opportunity is lost to you. So what do we do as a registered educational institution called the Mova Laventil Trade Complex or Trade School, as the case may be? I can't remember our school number. I want to make you know that this thing is not right here. We have to find solutions to the problems that we have encountered and that has festered over many decades. And by and large, having the wrong people in the institutions of social control, as I said this morning. And I will, of course, exclude the family because we have no control over the family. A child born in a family that has no, or put another way, demonstrates a certain reckless and brutal and nonchalant and immoral conduct, there's nothing that child could do. However, we can do something as an imperative in respect of those who occupy decision-making and execution positions in the education system, in the church, in the judiciary, in the prison system. We can do something about that. But I can't do anything really about the family because nobody has control over that. I, for example, could have been born maybe in the United States. The chance of birth, they call it. And of course, the likelihood that if I was white, that would have been a greater possibility. But as a dark-skinned person, I could have, my chances might have been easier, let's say, being born in Africa. Certainly not in the United States, and of course those European countries where white dominate. But that is theoretical, but it's good food for thought. That may be more what some consider to be there is a term that is used in circumstances like these that has to deal with, of course, physics. I think it's paraphysics or something like that. I'll get the term in a while. But the thing about it is that that has no place. The fact is that you are here in Trinidad, we are here in Trinidad, and we need to treat with that. So what do we do as an institution? We give them a crash course. We give them a test in computer literacy. And then, of course, our certificate is awarded to them. As they prepare for their interview, competing as it will be normal and acceptable and understood with others who want the same job that person is, of course, attempting, not have applied for, and the process of an interview is just one stage of that effort. Let's go straight to the line. I thought I would have gotten a chance not to respond to anyone before 9:30, but it appears that somebody is calling. Yes, indeed. Yeah. So, call back. Sorry about that. I saw the call on the phone, but apparently I missed you. Or I must have touched something that caused you to cause us to disconnect. Yes. So that is what we do. What am I really saying and alluding to? I am saying to you that if an institution like that did not exist, then that young person would have never gotten a chance to prove or to get the job and to prove that they would make the institution to which they are now to which they got the job, and of course to which they are now attached, proud, and be of course ultimately a contributor to its expansion and development. And that is a natural assumption that one makes. You go into business, of course, you have seed money, etc., and you start from, some people say, bootstrap operations, and then of course you build your capital. Business expand by one, expanding of customers, because that is where the growth takes place, or the consequence of that because of customer participation. But there is a simple fish business, a simple chicken and chips, selling Tulum, but in a particular way, or local rare confectionaries and so on. And you grow from one stage. You start, of course, in a little tree. Then, of course, you have a glass case. Then you see that you have to purchase more raw material to make more. You may have to employ someone. And then, of course, it goes, and then you mechanize the whole process. So you buy some kind of machine in order to to deliver more and more and more as the demands grow. And then, of course, you start to distribute it to various groceries and so on. And then suddenly somebody came in and saw it and decided, well, listen, they wanted to get some in Grenada, St. Vincent, Dominica, and maybe the United States and so on. Someone who might have come for Carnival or some other purpose, but they saw it. And next thing, you blossom into relatively large business that is viable, making enough to satisfy, not just to keep the business afloat, but to pay salaries and, of course, the owner's expenditure. And that is how it happens. So I'm saying all of this to say that there are need for institutions that are sensible and sensitive to all of these developments. And therefore, whilst it begins with the family, we have to understand that the people in the education system, those in the churches, those in the judiciary, those in the police service, those in the political realm, must have a consciousness, or build a consciousness that will avoid the difficulties that would have been created by the pitfalls of the past. And we have seen, of course, in the case of the PNM, being in office for too long, the institutionalization of mediocrity. Persons who clearly find themselves in decision-making processes that they ought not to have been, and therefore undermine and render ultimately, as we said today under the ground report, the dysfunctionality of these significant institutions of social control, and thus the mushrooming and the proliferation of the quagmire and the morass that we have found ourselves in, that has culminated and continues to evolve into further deterioration of our circumstance. We have to find solutions, and meritocracy must be part and parcel of that process. The people who have the ability and have the qualification must, of course, take charge on the basis of merit, not mediocrity. And why can I say that there is a need for meritocracy and not mediocrity, and the jettisoning or the elimination or the expulsion or the annihilation of mediocrity? You see, once that happens, it can only be the result of corruption. And corruption here being the corrupting of the institution, where friends and family then, of course, becomes the order of the day without any kind of vetting that will, of course, make certain that the institution functions optimally. We have seen that with the scholarship program that the PNM would have introduced over time, where they put their people in EBC, they put the people, of course, in those institutions that are supposed to be independent, but they put, of course, commissioners such as those in the Police Service Commission, those, of course, in the Civil Service Commission, and other commissions that are supposed to be independent, and they, in turn, of course, pull in persons that identify with the party, and they put them, of course, in what I consider to be executive positions to roll out the functions, the mandate of the various institutions, and they, in turn, of course, pull in those persons who they could identify with. And so the entire system has now become dysfunctional as a consequence of that imposition and implantation. The PNM cannot be, having regard to all, not just of the opportunities that they would have gotten to have it, to get it right, but sought to promote a system of mediocrity that has created the collapse of the various institutions of social control. Apart from the family, as I said earlier, I made the distinction. But the fact of the matter is that we are in dire straits, and we must find institutions, not find institutions, but revamp those institutions to the point of mediocrity being eliminated and meritocracy promoted, so we have a better functioning Trinidad and Tobago. People, of course, it is now 9:39, so 9:38, so of course I've come to the end of tonight's program. Yes, indeed, of course, we had about, I know that once people see the consistency, I know that you will call. As I said, I've found a way to engage you until I'm able to rectify. But you will see the other programs coming on stream. Don't forget, of course, earlier, about 5:30 thereabout, you will see Joshua and his friends as they discuss, as they look at school life, home life, family life. Home life here, I'm talking about neighborhood, what they would have experienced. And we'll engage them. I will be there, and we'll have one or two persons asking them questions as well. So we wouldn't leave them to their own devices, so to speak, because they may well go off the beaten track, so to speak, because they are kids. Of course, Joshua is just, 10 years of age. And of course, I'm sure that is around that age he will want to invite, because based on your knowledge, you'll be able, of course, to engage in a very sensible and a very rewarding conversation. Right, quite apart from the introduction of, persons who may be more experienced and maybe elder, in order, of course, to generate the variety and at the same time to keep these programs where it matters, where young people can now be attracted to. Mommy and Daddy, we expect that, and those persons who may be in charge of young people for one reason or another, we'll expect that you will be there as well, by virtue of making sure that these young people focus. And we try to have it interactive as well. We'll have a telephone arrangement as well, where these young people can call in, talk to Joshua, talk to his friends, etc. And so we have that level of conversation as we take back, one, and two, nurture them in a direction that today, God knows, is too often, it's too regular. But we are hearing young people dying. Gang warfare, police intervention, and the essence of life and the potential for positive contribution, if it wasn't for that kind of what I consider to be decadence. As I said earlier, the longest journey begins with a single step, according to Confucius. But we cannot at the same time stand at the bottom of the ladder and gaze to the sky and want to reach without trying. And therefore, of course, this initiative is in that direction. We'll talk tomorrow about the elements of the Zoso and how it relates to the whole question of solving on a sustained basis the whole question of crime and criminality, because I am passionate about that. I believe it was the first opportunity in many more to come once the success would have been gleaned or would have been extracted from such an implementation. Because you see, it provided an element for persons like myself to insist that interventions of the type that we know, whether it's physical, psychological, educational, sporting, social welfare intervention, only when you look at the document, only real in this time and for this time, that document would have been able to cause people like me to insist. Prior to that, and right now, I have to beg, but the document says that you don't have to beg, you have to insist, because the government had an obligation to bring things into the community once, of course, that particular community would have been designated as a ZOSO, or a zone of what? ZOSO of special operations. ZOSO. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. And see you tomorrow as we continue, of course, with these and other issues. Don't forget that tomorrow morning, of course, the ground report on 91.1, yes. I'm talking about the Talk City, yes, 91.1, that is beginning to make waves as we treat with these and similar issues. Let's get back, of course, to the late, great Lord Shorty and the whole question of admonishing young people not to gravitate. I think this is very appropriate, because whilst chemical dependency or drugs is a part of it, I think it, captured in song, will reinforce and emphasize why young people must not engage, and the adults have a responsibility to monitor and to prevent and to make the necessary intervention to avoid the disaster that such engagement will bring to our humanity and our young children and our children and the general society as a whole. Oh boy, all right, let me go, let me take that. All right, let me take that. Hello, good night. Just hold on, let me just take up that song. I was now going and stop. Hold on. Right, good. All right, let me just put you on. Pleasant good night. Welcome. I was now going to cut off.
Yeah, pleasant good night to you and
yes.
all the listeners on your program.
Yes, man.
Are you going? Everything good?
Yeah. Fighting up. I'm very optimistic. We're back on track, and there are other things that are happening. Yeah. That's all right. Yeah, and we have greater variety now, and I'm sure somebody might have raised. Yeah. I noticed that I had to ball out. Yeah, no phone, but I had to find a way tonight.
No phone call.
Yes.
Yes, I realize that. But
Yeah.
I had a call sometime during the day.
Okay.
I have something I want to tell you. I have a big piece of corruption
Okay.
to tell you.
Okay.
I want to talk about the ear now, but I will call you personally.
All right. Okay, no problem. And maybe we can find a way to, of course.
I'll call you during the day or something.
Yeah, and people like you have to come forward. We need to get people like you who are positive, who understand what is happening, so that we can impact on these young people.
Watch my everything I'm calling. I'll call you. You will see. You will
Okay,
shocked.
all right, no problem. I want to be shocked.
The kind of game these people are playing.
All right, okay, I want to be shocked. All right, partner. Thanks very much, and of course,
Right,
see you tomorrow night. Yes, bye-bye. Yes. And even, of course, I had to be, obviously I had to delay a bit in order to accommodate, and this young man, he never ceased to impress me. So you notice I tried to rope him in one time, but he resisted for the time being. But that's all right. I think there is a saying that success breeds success. So when things start to flow and the time is right, I know that people will simply gravitate. But let's go back to that tune by Ras Shorty I that speaks to the whole question of admonishing young people not to pursue a particular course of action. And I want to say that the adults must aid in that process.
My sons and my daughters, to you I play song.
It's dedicated
Don't get
to all
no
my
harm.
sons and daughters through the four corners of the earth.
My sons and my daughters, to you I plead. Watch, don't get no horrors, but please take heed. I know you don't want no sermon, but my admonition is to guard you against all the evils of life that create strife and destroy life. Walk cautiously, children, be alert, because you have an enemy enemy that's roaming the earth. I know you're young and restless, but you don't have to be careless. You see, sober thinking leads on to righteousness, to happiness, spiritual bliss. That's why I tell you this. Watch out, my children. Watch out, my children. It have a fella called Lucifer with a bag of white powder, and he don't want to powder your face, but to bring shame and disgrace to the human race. Now we sing it again. Watch out, my children. Watch out, my children. It have a fella called Lucifer with a bag of white powder, and he don't want to powder your face, but to bring shame and disgrace to the human race. I give you my counsel because I want to see all you young people live righteously. What you feed your mind with forms your characteristics and shape the path that you must walk tomorrow. Darkness or glow, joy or sorrow, that's why I'm concerned. So watch out, my children. Watch out, my children. Yeah, yeah. It have a fella called Lucifer with a bag of white powder, and he don't want to powder your face, but to bring shame and disgrace to the human race. To all my sons and daughters and children.